Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka Podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast. Every 2 weeks, we watch an anime, we talk about it on this podcast, and then we turn our comment section over to you to make our podcast better. That's how it works, because that's what the title implies. This week, we watched That Time I Got Reincarnated into a Slime. We only watched the first 13 episodes, and we'll be watching the rest of the series of season 1 in our next major podcast. To do this, I need the help of my co-host. First off, we have the mystique to my X-Men, Jeremy.
So, sexy shapeshifter. All right. So I'm all right. I actually have started watching Aquaman, but I had to pause it for the podcast, and I'm actually really enjoying it. It's great. I love it. The acting isn't fantastic, but the action scenes, the attitudes of the characters, and the overall writing, I'm very much enjoying. It's very entertaining.
I've heard really good things. I'm supposed to watch it soon, but I heard like the movie genre flips on the drop of a hat. You're just like in a new genre, like adventure, horror, go.
Yes, I totally agree with that, 100%. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's really entertaining.
I'm actually really, as a movie buff, I'm really excited to see how that works out. I'm excited.
Yep.
So we also have the envy to my alchemist, Jason. How are you?
I like that. That's she was my favorite homunculi. So.
He certainly was.
Huh?
Oh.
And envy is
Oh, not lust. Envy.
Yeah.
Oh, envy.
I was doing shapeshifters and
I guess.
Yeah.
Anyways.
No one likes envy. Just so you know.
Has anyone heard of a new game called Satisfactory that just came out this month?
Nope.
I think I might have seen it while you were playing through notifications. Maybe.
It's Factorio, but first person and with a beautiful world. Done in Unreal Engine. It's early access. I'm having a blast. It's you got to do all the factories and conveyor belts, and
so it's like first person basically, but you're building all of the factory parts.
Yeah. And then instead of trying to get off the planet, which is the what Factorio is, in this one, the company actually sends you out to just ship resources to them. Oh. And so with every resource shipment you get, they then trickle in some more research to you. Like, okay, now you can build this. Thank you.
Okay, that was awesome. Super fun. And my name is Troy.
All of that is getting cut out.
I am the guy who has to edit the garbage that you didn't hear in these past few moments. What would be funny is, what if I don't cut anything and they think you even were worse than that?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I, due to circumstances that out of my control, I saw Captain Marvel, and I really liked it. It was mid-tier Marvel films, MCU, but if Thor 2 is the worst they can do, then that's fine. That's a good movie. Super excited for Endgame. That's really probably my biggest motivation to going to see it. And please give me more Skrulls. Please give me more Ben Mendelsohn as a Skrull. Please. Make it a series on Disney Plus. I'll watch it twice.
Being a villain in different guises.
And one is I don't want to spoil too much. He's a great Skrull, and it's a very different take on the Skrulls than the comic books, which some people are probably going to be upset with. But I never really cared about the Skrulls, and this time I did care about Skrulls, and he just has some great moments, and I don't want to, like I said, don't want to spoil anything. Not super important to Endgame. Some old plot stuff is kind of moved around, but nothing that changes anything you needed to know. Otherwise, it was a perfectly good movie. Had a good time.
So how would you rate it next to like Alita Battle Angel?
I haven't seen Alita Battle Angel, but I hear they're both great. I hear they're both good movies, and that's fine. There can be more than one good movie. I also hear Shazam is really good. And now I'm like, oh god, I want to see Shazam.
Yep.
There's just too many good movies for me to go to theaters enough to see them.
You said you only had so much money and you picked Marvel over Alita. I'm so offended.
I was too.
You know, I even declared on this podcast that if you want to see more well-made anime live-action movies, you should go see Alita. And I didn't.
I know.
Oh, it's going to be like that, is it?
Yeah, I think anime should stay animes. I think they're just fine. I'm kind of the impression that they're fine to leave alone as they are. People should learn to watch animated films.
I say, can't we have both?
We can. I'm not like mad about it, but I just don't.
Show how we feel in the comments below.
Okay. Yes.
I'm a huge fan of the MCU, and I don't have a problem with that. Anyway, like I said, we're here to talk about an anime about a guy who turns into a slime in his next life.
It's pretty entertaining.
So before we go into our spoiler section, we're going to give our non-spoiler reviews. Again, it's only the first 13 episodes, so we don't know what's going to happen, and everything in our review is only based on this first half. So keep that in mind. So Jeremy, this was your pick. What did you think?
I'm enjoying it so far. I kind of would like to see it take itself a little bit more seriously soon. Like, it seems like all the pieces are set up now, and I'm really curious to see just how they're going to play the game out on the board. Like, where are they going to go with this? And I can see ways that they could go that would be really boring, and I can also see ways they would go that would be really, really intriguing and entertaining. And I would like them to remain consistent with the humor that they're bringing to the table, because this is a really lighthearted anime. And I'd like them to keep it that way. That would be cool. But it would be nice to have a little something more meaty to grab onto, I think.
Okay, Jason, how about you?
For me, this is painfully generic, yet fairly entertaining. And I think it hits a couple spots, because the problem is, because of its lack of seriousness, this type of isekai storytelling has obviously been done before many times, and in my opinion, better in other anime. But I think what this one brings to the table is a mixture between what you might find with ReZero and Konosuba. It's like kind of this middle road, right? And I'm enjoying it. I'm interested to see where it goes. I think if they go too serious, they're going to and lose the comedic effect. They'll lose the audience, because I think that's where its strong suit is for me, is the comedy.
The thing I'd say is I don't dislike it. I really don't. It hasn't quite grabbed me. It really feels to me, I get a lot of shonen vibes from it. And I'll explain that in a moment when we talk about the intro, but I keep waiting for let's do big battles, and it's not doing that either. I'm just not getting really anything satisfying for what I like to get out of my anime from this. And like they said, it's not really anything new. It is a generic fantasy world like most of the isekais we've seen, and there's nothing special about it. The dragon looks like a dragon and not a super giant evil whale. Everything is exactly what you'd expect it to be. Goblins don't do horrible things to human beings in this one.
It was refreshing.
That was nice. Orcs do. But yeah, we'll get on into that into actual spoilers. But yeah, so I'm not sold yet, but I don't really have anything bad to say about it other than it's just kind of, like you said, generic. So speaking of the opening and closing, what did you guys think?
I really enjoyed them, actually. The visuals for the opening and closing I thought were great. They really lent to the storytelling, and the music was really good. No complaints here.
Yeah, it didn't really sweep me off my feet, but I did like it. Yeah, on both counts.
Visually, this is actually my favorite part of the anime every time. I think the opening and the closing are making this is an anime I want to watch. The battles are cool. I love the turn into a slime ball to dodge and then turn back into a human form. That's so cool, and I keep waiting to see something cool fight wise in that, and I haven't yet. And so, like I said, I get real battle anime vibes from especially the opening, and that's not really what's happening in the story. The music for me was good, but not very memorable. I couldn't hum it right now, but I did like hearing it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I can.
And I didn't even skip them. I let them play. Like I said, I liked hearing the music, but right now, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you what it was. So let's go to our spoiler sections and really get into it. We even have an extra topic that's going to be coming out of this conversations we're going to be having that's going to be dealt with on our minisode next week. But let's talk about this anime. Spoilers galore, so you've been warned. Here we go. We start in our world, as most isekais do. We meet our main protagonist. He's everything you would expect from an isekai, except for a little older. He's 37 years old. He's never touched a boob.
A 4-year-old version.
Yeah, he's basically a 40-year-old virgin. Very nice guy, though. He does good at his job. He has lots of friends, even though they like to rub their girlfriends into his face. Not literally, but... and then while actually he's dealing with a friend and his new fiance, a mugger walks up with a knife and he ends up getting stabbed, and that's what sends him to the isekai world. And we need to talk about that. But before we do, let's talk about this character who will become our slime. In the slime, he's Rimuru Tempest. Right now, his name is Satoru. It doesn't matter. What did you guys think of our main character?
I like him overall. It's funny because when I was a kid, I can remember, like, if I was in that superhero shoes with these powers, I would probably do this. And it's near mirror copy of younger me going, if I was all powerful, what would I do in this situation? Before he turns into slime, I actually kind of want to watch that anime too, because he seems, he seems funny. He's kind, but definitely sarcastic and kind of self-deprecating, because
a little cynical about it. Like, yeah, I help people, but of course they come to me for help.
Yeah, he's like a miser inside. Scrooge. Yeah.
Right. So no, I actually am really enjoying this character so far. So
yeah, I really like him too. There's moments where I kind of wonder if there's more depth to him than we're being shown so far in the anime. Simply because people will pose questions to him, or they'll be discussing something, and you'd expect him to just leap in and say something, guide the conversation, make a decision right away. And sometimes that's just taken away from him. Another character will step in and say something. Other times, the conversation will continue and other characters will keep talking, and he'll just be sitting there in his human form, thinking and observing. And we're kind of hearing some of his inner dialogue, but it makes me wonder if maybe there is that, 37 years of experience, which is uncommon in an anime protagonist. Maybe they are giving us a character that has a little bit more depth, and we just haven't really gotten to see where that goes. Because he's also like a supervisor in his position at his work. Like he's used to managing people. He's used to dealing with complex office, relationships. And
we find out he's very middle management.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so it's I'm really intrigued, and I want to see where they take his character and whether I'm just reading into things or if there really is depth there.
Okay. For me, he's a fun character. He's very funny. What I do find really refreshing about him, especially in isekai fantasy, is that he's like purely good. He's super good. He wants to help people. Like I said, he might be a little cynical about it while he does it, but for the most part, and I believe he even states at one point his goal is to make this world a better place. And there's not really anything that pushes him to that or inspires him to that. That's just like a natural course for him. He's like, well, I guess if I'm going to be living in this world, I might as well make this world better. And that is kind of refreshing compared to like stuff like Overlord or Tanya the Evil. Okay, well, if you're going to be an overpowered boss, at least you're doing it good. There is one character. Well, when we get to Gonta, I want to kind of talk about their relationship that doesn't really fit with the rest of how Rimuru deals with people, but it's funny when he does it anyway, so I guess it's more for the joke than probably for actual personality. He's a static character, and I don't think there's an arc for him, at least not yet. But that's fine, because I do think he's one of those characters that are going to make other characters have arcs. He's going to inspire arcs.
Which that's one thing I've noticed about this anime is that it's real easy to care about the other characters in this anime.
Yeah.
There are a lot of them.
And,
Yeah, there are a lot of them.
yeah, and actually the arcs that he pushes them through sometimes are incredibly obvious. Like, they're accompanied sometimes with physical changes.
Yeah, and sometimes they're like one episode long. Like this isn't a deep, at least not so far. This isn't deep or subtle.
But it still carries itself fairly well with the comedy. It does a good job being light.
I agree with that. Okay, so let's talk about his death scene, because it plays in huge into his slimeness. As he's dying, he's basically having this inner monologue, complaining about how he's feeling. Like, at first he says he's too hot, then he says he's too cold. And all this time, now in the English dub, it's a very computerized voice. Is that the same in the sub?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason, do you think, that it's a computer voice?
I don't know.
I would have to just guess. I have no idea.
Okay. I actually, this scene was so contrived and could have been done so many better ways in the same amount of time. Dude running down the street with a knife,
yes,
aimlessly, literally aimlessly. Like, everyone could have dodged out of the way, and he would have just ran past. Like, there was. It could have been a mugging. Like, he could have, like, grabbed the girl's purse and, like, he goes in to, like, grab it and then he gets stabbed. Like, that would have made so much more sense. This scene made no sense, but that's not what this anime is about. So
he could have pushed her out of the way from a truck, but then not got hit by the truck, but died out of fear. And then the doctors laughed so hard they didn't revive him.
That could have happened.
Actually, I liked that so much better.
Jeremy, your favorite moment, though, happens right at this moment.
Oh, God. It's so great. I love it that when he's dying, the thing he's thinking about the most is how to eliminate evidence on his computer. This made me laugh so hard. Oh, God. But also just the way that the interactions between his thoughts, because people always, these were the tropiest statements, like, oh, it's so hot. Oh, it's so cold, right? But to have
it hurt so much.
Yeah, it hurts so much. Oh, and to have these thoughts actually interact with this other computerized voice and result in he's going through his character creation process. Right, it's amazing. I loved that.
My biggest complaints about this, and it's kind of my biggest issue with the anime as a whole, is that, like Jason said, it's contrived, and also it kind of takes away from the premise I thought they were setting up, because as he's complaining, he's basically gaining skills for his character in the world. Mm-hmm. Except for, is Predator a slime skill, or is that also from the death scene? I can't remember.
Oh, that was from the death scene, because he says, "Oh, I'm a virgin" or something like that, and I'm gonna go after every girl I see, and it goes skill Predator acquired.
So hard. So he has all these super abilities. So yeah, he is a slime, but he's not constricted to just what a slime does. He gets all these extra abilities, and then later he gets the ability. This should be called The Time I Got Reincarnated as a Shape-Shifting Red Mage.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is fine, and still, it's not a bad premise. It's still fun to watch, but I thought it was going to be like, I'm stuck in one of the weakest monsters ever, and I've got to maximize what it can do and minimize what it can't do and deal with that. And he doesn't have to at all.
Well, also they make mention that slimes are not normally sentient or able to speak. So I think if there was a slime with those set of abilities that he was bestowed upon, I don't think they would have had the necessary drive to gain what he's gained, right?
Right.
Every other external skill that he gets from analyzing or eating.
Well, one of my favorite scenes is actually right when this when he comes back as a slime is that he can't interact with the world like he's used to. He's trying to figure out what's going on. He's rolling. Oh my God, there's a flower in me. Oh my God, I'm eating it. Okay, I guess I'll just keep eating flowers. Like, I thought that was really cool because it's like, okay, he's limited to slimeness, but that by the end of this episode, that's just gone.
Yeah, like, he still has his slime body, but he's got all of these. He's got all the necessary functions and senses that he had before.
Right.
This to me is where the idea of his character shifted from, you know, what you were describing as like the weak slime and how it survives maybe through trickery or cunning, into more of like the Diablo, or I don't remember there being one in Path of Exile, but when you have an enemy that's a slime in those games, they're windshield monsters usually, right? Like you just swat them out of the way in those games, but every now and then you run into one that's named and it's bigger than the others and it has special modifiers and it's powerful, and you wonder, why is this thing so special? And I mean, given these are just silly games and whatnot, but that's the isekai world. And so to me, it was almost like they were giving that slime a justification and an existence in this character, in this world.
Actually, one thing that gets pointed out later on that I really loved was none of the other isekai that are based on RPGs have done this. They said, you know, you've got monsters and then named monsters, and then you have unique monsters, which are super rare. And I was like, unique monster, yes!
So cool.
I do like that way of thinking, Jeremy. That does actually make it feel a little better,
a little more palatable.
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, he's rolling along as a slime. He eats a bunch of flowers, which he finds out can make healing potions. So he's got basically. He also can store everything inside him.
Yeah,
he has a Mary Poppins bag in his gut.
He's got the void belly.
Yep,
or dimensional pocket.
I'm still trying to figure out exactly how that dimensional pocket belly works, because like with some things he digests them and can change their chemistry, right? Like there's some ores that he changes into a different type of ore, like a more refined steel ore, and yet other creatures that he consumes are alive in there, not being digested, just existing.
No. So there was two different. Yeah, it's actually established fairly well. If he's going to analyze something with Predator, it gets dissolved no matter what it is. When he was healing those goblins, I think he was just getting on top of them to use his potions, and then he spat them back out.
I was thinking specifically of Dragon and Ifrit.
So, yeah, I think Ifrit is because he's a spirit, and the dragon he actually hasn't gained access to.
Yeah, he doesn't have access to him,
because he hasn't broken through the barrier.
Hold on, I believe Great Sage mentioned, and Great Sage is the name basically of the computer voice, which he already had before he gained the Great Sage ability, but it's fine.
Yeah, he did.
He did. She say like there's two pathways something can go once you eat it, like you can dissolve it or you can store it for later use. And I believe and you can analyze both, because he is analyzing the dragon to figure out. He's analyzing the
bubble,
the prison. Yeah.
He's also analyzing Ifrit because he got some of Ifrit's power through analyzing him, but he didn't digest him.
I thought she said something about that. Like you can send it on two different routes. If you do this, you'll digest it and it'll be a part of you. If you do that, you can just store it for later.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, that explains a lot. I must have just missed it.
But he's basically Kirby.
Yes,
he is basically Kirby.
He is.
So he goes into a cave. He eats a bunch of magic rocks, which give him a bunch of magic power, and then he meets a dragon, which he can't see. He doesn't realize he's talking to a dragon. They have a little bit of an argument at first.
I love the way they drew it at first, because he can't see. He just has this shadow figure that he can hear the voice coming from. I love how that was drawn.
Yep. The dragon actually teaches him to see on the condition they can become friends. Because this is Valdora, Storm Dragon. He is one of the 4 true dragons of the world. And I guess, they paint him as like one of the 4 most powerful things in this world. Or at least top tier.
I loved that his request was to have a friend and come visit me sometimes. Because, it's so like early 2000s tropey as far as like cartoon storytelling, but it fits so well here because he's literally locked in a prison, and it's like a prisoner going, "Will you come visit me? Because I believe
I've been in here 300 years and I'm so lonely.
So they do become friends, and they decide to name each other. Like Jason mentioned, in this world, you don't start with a name, and when you get a name, good things happen to you. It's going Super Saiyan.
It's Pokemon evolution.
It's
Yes.
also Pokemon evolution.
All of the above. Yep.
So Valdora already has a name, so when he gives him another name, that has no effect, right?
Yeah, I honestly think that's true because he just takes it on as a surname, right? Whereas the name that Valdoras gives him is his first name, and he keeps the surname that he gave the dragon, and it doesn't seem to grant him any special powers either. I think it's just a signifier.
Also, I don't know if he has the power to name Valdora at this point.
Right.
Because they make it very clear, the more powerful the creature you're naming, the more it takes out of you. And if Valdora is as strong as Valdora is supposed to be, I think it's more of just a, yeah, sure, you can call me that. It'll be cool.
Yeah, exactly. I did think there was one thing that confused me about this was when the dragon reaches forward with his claw and the slime and the claw touch.
They touch, yeah.
And yet there is a barrier between the slime and the dragon, keeping the dragon from being digested inside the slime's belly. So where did they touch? Did they touch
maybe
at that specific?
Yeah, right at the point of the force field.
He didn't actually touch. It was just like
when you go to visit someone in prison and they press themselves up against the glass.
That makes sense.
I haven't done that before.
No, but you've watched a lot of movies.
I've watched a lot of movies. Oh, Billy. No one's gonna get that reference.
No,
it makes me sad. It makes me sad. Yeah. So then they come to the agreement. Hey, what if instead of coming to visit you, I just eat you? This is from who's now named Rimuru, the slime, and Valdora's like, you know what? Screw it.
Here.
Rimuru basically eats the shell. He's been imprisoned by a hero, and he's running. The dragon's slowly running out of magic, so it'll eventually kill him to stay in this bubble. So Rimuru does him the favor of eating him, which gives him Valdora's power level.
I don't think so, because I think Valdora is still inaccessible.
So is his power level just from eating all those rocks?
I think so. And being named.
Yeah, I think he got a big power boost from being named. And then, he ate just a ton of those rocks, which every one of them gave him a ton of magic kills.
Yeah, and we're not given a time frame of that, so it could be like he was in here for 100 years eating rocks because he's just a slime who wouldn't know.
Yeah. It was kind of weird how he was eating all the rocks and he was saying, yeah, I've eaten everything. There's nothing left in this cave. And then later we see some shots where there's rocks.
Also, he meets monsters later on that he completely missed.
Yes, that's true.
Which is what happens next. So after he grows huge and eats the dragon, and they can't talk, which I thought was interesting. I thought for sure he'd be able to talk to him, but they totally separate him. He wanders around the cave trying to find a way out and murdering every monster he can find.
And then eating them.
And gaining their skills.
Oh, we should also mention that as soon as he gets turned into a slime, he gets like a more androgynous, higher pitched, almost childlike, maybe effeminate voice or feminine voice at least. Which is a little bit strange because I'm still thinking of him as like the 37-year-old guy for a couple episodes.
Well, they changed his name to Pat.
Oh God, Pat. That's perfect. It's the right shape. It's the right androgyny.
Honestly, I was super disappointed about it.
Really?
When that happened. Yeah, I Isekai does this, and that's fine. You know, Momonga changed his voice when he became the Overlord. But yeah, I especially since it's all in his head, right? Why would your internal voice change?
Yeah.
And I like the idea of a 37-year-old man narrating, "I'm a slime," and then it's this, "I'm a cute slime," and like, oh, okay, this probably sells more plushies, but
kind of missed an opportunity to have a little bit more depth there.
And comedy. I found the 37-year-old man going, "I'm eating a flower."
That was pretty great.
That was.
Yeah. He eventually makes it out of the cave after sneaking past 3 adventurers who are coming in. They will factor in later. We saw the Baron and the Guildmaster. The Guildmaster is the little orange-haired kid from Shizu's past, right?
Right.
Her school days?
Yeah.
She said he became the Guildmaster?
Yeah.
Okay. So that, to be fair, I did not put that together till 5 minutes before we started recording.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did not.
I've been trying to figure out who the different kids were, and that's the only one that I'm sure of.
I think we'll meet the one kid. I mean, he's in the OP.
With the dark hair and the sword that's fighting him. Mm-hmm.
All right. After he gets out, he runs into a bunch of goblins, and basically the entire power balance of this forest has changed, and monsters are flooding into it because the dragon that was keeping them at bay with his just powerful aura is gone. And these goblins are like, "Oh, look, it's a slime," but they sense how powerful it is, so they're super scared of him, and then they take him to the village and are like, "Can you help us?" They also help him realize, "You are putting off just like Omega levels of power. Can you turn that down?" And he figures out how to hide his power level.
So that's what made me think he does get some form of power from Veldora, or at least his bank of power or mana is extremely extended, which makes a little more sense. Because if he was putting off, it doesn't make sense that now monsters are coming in because the dragon's gone if no one could feel him outside the bubble. And if you can feel him, then that means he's giving off some sort of magical energy. So since he's eaten him, now all that magical energy that's now gone is stuck inside him. So I think that's probably where he's getting a big power boost as well.
It's like having a 9-tailed fox demon inside you.
No, he's
1-for-1 equation. That was exactly perfect.
So the goblins are having problems, and we're going to talk about the goblins in a little bit. But basically, anytime you meet a monster in this, again, they don't have names, and I was sitting here waiting, like, what's your just old goblin? Okay, old goblin, sure.
Great. The tale of Goblin Slayer. That's perfect.
I do appreciate though that at least when they say a name, they write it out on the screen for me, and that makes my job taking notes a whole lot easier. This village is being attacked by dire wolves. In fact, the elder's eldest son has been murdered by them. He was a named goblin hero who died to these dire wolves, and now they're like, they're going to come for us. They're going to wipe out our village. We need some help. I do have a bit of an issue here. Again, there's a convoluted thing that happens where he says, "What will you give me if I do it?" Rimuru doesn't act, and Rimuru even says, "I don't actually want anything, but I feel I need to play the part." And really what they're doing is we need to make sure that these goblins pay him back, even though our character is so good he would never expect any reward, and it's having your cake and eating it too. And I get you need to have him become the leader of this village so he can play SimCity with it. But
it's such a great description of what happened.
That's from Jeremy. Jeremy, to be fair, coined the SimCity thing. But
it's definitely a colony builder.
It's just such a throwaway line of, "Hey, I need to ask them if they'll give me anything," and I'm like, "Did you?"
This did feel out of place.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't bother me that much. It didn't really.
Jeremy, you would ask them for real, and I 100% believe that. But Rimuru's character, I don't think would, and he says it like, I gotta play this role, but really it's just this.
I don't know. I see it as middle management negotiations. Like there's things that you have to know what is probably going to be on the table and what you should be expected to do. Like there's protocols, and I imagine.
But Rimuru doesn't even want to take care of this village at this point.
No, that's true. But I don't know if he's going to save them. Like it's an exchange, therefore a negotiation is Just a part of it, it seems like.
You know, most of these isekais kind of start out this way, right? They meet characters and they're like, I know nothing about this world. I need to make some sort of ally that can help me
That's true.
orient myself, give me a home base, give me some place to start. And I think that's kind of what was happening here is he was looking for basically make friends.
Yeah.
Obviously, he could have made friends without forcing them to serve allegiance. But yeah, I think that's kind of where the contrived storytelling comes from is they needed him to have a home base.
Yeah, I mean it's a line I expect from Daniel the Evil, from Overlord, and any of those. Again, it felt so weird for this character who even has to go out of his way to remind the audience, I don't actually want anything. I'm not that kind of character, but I'm doing this anyway. And I think that maybe that's the worst part for it is that he literally says out loud, I don't actually want anything. I'm just asking them for something anyway.
Yeah, that's possible. That's really interesting. Like I've noticed, you and Jason both have a much better ability to like grasp when the character's speaking to the audience. Cause for me, when I hear stuff like that, I genuinely interpret it as the character's just like, that is his thinking. And so then I try to justify why his thinking is that way. But I think you guys are right. I mean, obviously they're writing it with a mind to how they're going to influence the audience. So it does make sense. But yeah, I actually never picked up on that as being something said to the audience.
I just thought it was weird because it was internal monologue that he would even need to clarify that. Because from you, I have learned this is the proper way to handle going to an isekai world. You need to, like Jason said, you need to start setting up a little bit of your life here. It really was that second part that kind of got me. But it's a minor thing. They do offer to serve him, and he's like, okay, that will do. So he decides to help them.
Actually, for him, it backfired a little because, yeah, at this point, he didn't want a village.
Yeah, he
and
didn't
he's
really,
like, okay. This is not what I wanted.
He heals a bunch of the goblins that have been injured using the basically, from storytelling point of view, unlimited healing potions that he has inside him from, I guess, as long as you want to imagine him eating flowers.
Deus Ex healing.
Which is fine, because they did establish, like, he literally had nothing to do but eat healing flowers.
Right. In an extremely magically prone cave from the dragon. Yeah.
It reminds me of when I would play JRPGs and just grind and get like 99 potions, and then the rest of the game was really easy.
You want to know what this anime feels like to me is playing SimCity and typing in the unlimited money.
Yes. Totally agree.
And then being like, no, I'm doing so good. The dire wolves then come in, and they're, there's all these dire wolves, and they have a leader who's like, he's also the father of one of the dire wolves, and they come up and they're threatening. The goblins have now built some fencing and stuff, and the dire wolves rush the fencing, but instead there's steel thread laced in front of it before you reach the fence, and he catches this is one of Rimuru's abilities from the cave now.
He's a spider. And
he slices off the head of the leader of the dire wolves and then eats him.
And then mimics him.
And then becomes him and uses the menace ability, which is supposed to scare things away. And he's like, I'll kill every single one of you. Run away, doggies. You don't want to fight me. Inside, he's fully playing a bluff. He does not want to fight and kill all these dire wolves. And he's like, oh, I'm the worst. You need to leave. And they're like, okay, well, we'll serve you. And he's like, okay, I guess that also works.
This is not what I wanted.
And so the dire wolves join the goblin village, and he actually pairs them up.
It's like, I have two problems. Let's make them solve each other.
And this is where I started to lose interest in the seriousness or any seriousness this was trying to give, and more of the comedic nature and just kind of going along with the story for the ride, because it's like, okay, you've got two factions that have deaths on either side that they can contribute to each other, and now they're just going to live together happily. Yeah. And even the now leader of the dire wolves,
Ranga,
which later on Rimuru asks him straight up, like, don't you want to hurt me for killing your dad? And he's like, you're the best, Rimuru. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure.
I actually agree because it's. Don't you want to kill me for killing your dad? I totally should, but I love you.
Okay, so I agree with you guys, but at the same time, I do think that they did a good enough job justifying why the wolf would view things that way because of just what a name means to them. And if you think of like the alpha of the pack, right, the whole concept is that it's the strongest one that is the most dominant that can keep the pack alive. If he kills it, then he kind of has fulfilled the role of becoming the next alpha, and even to the point of demonstrating that he can shapeshift into one of them. And like, I don't know, I saw enough justification that it didn't come across quite as shallowly to me, and also, I don't know, animal minds are a bit more alien, and so I can give them a little bit more leeway than I would expect of a human's response. But I do see where you guys are coming from, and the thought did cross my mind too.
Yeah, like it's your son watch his dad not only decapitated, but then consumed in front of him.
Yes.
And then the monster that did this to your dad takes your dad's form. Like, that's a little messed up.
It's not, for me, it's not that Ranga's loyal to him, because that actually, everything you said makes sense about that, Jeremy. That's just the way their mentality works. That's completely fine. He loves Rimuru. He wags his tail at Rimuru. And I'm like, if you have a character who thinks that much, then I'm like, there was, again, this is a comedy, so it's actually not even a big deal. This is like, they're not taking this seriously. They're not going to dive into deep emotional states. But if you were, this would be a great storytelling opportunity to be like, how do you deal with I loved my father, but my loyalty is now, this is how our culture works. Mm-hmm. And I served the guy who killed my father, who is a good guy. So I was the villain, but also I have this hostility, and them having to work that out and come to terms with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but this is a comedy, and it was funny. It's funny when he wags his tail. And
it was very much like, basically, they were just saying, how do we move on past this? Let's just say it out loud and then move past it and be done.
With any other anime, this would have been maybe a 2 or 3 episode long thing. This is like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is anime does a lot. The biggest moments, the characters get like 3 episodes to build and then be done with their arcs, but we're moving on. So again, it's just not going deep. It's just not going serious. It is a comedy.
It's very much like the rock skipping across the surface of the lake.
Which it's not bad. I don't get why it's so popular.
Maybe I wonder if there's a bit of a saturation of seriousness lately, and I don't. Maybe something like this is just enough, like you were saying, Jason, just enough like Konosuba, that people are like, oh man, this is so refreshing. It's like a cool drink in a really warm, muggy day.
And I know for me, the fact that it's an isekai definitely weighs against it, just because there's just so many of those now. Right. And that's not really, if this was the only isekai I'd seen in years, I'd probably would be a lot more lenient on it.
Then who knows? Maybe it takes a crazy spin after episode 13 and is going to just completely blow us away. I don't know.
Or it'll continue to do what it does, and why it's so popular. Maybe it's the way a lot of the women are drawn.
That could be.
Even the goblas?
Goblina.
Goblinas.
Which we need to get to. But I want to say, my vote is still for it to go shonen battle anime. I think this would make a great shonen battle anime. I think a lot of the characters, have certain power levels. And anyway, so to get his village on track, he decides to name everybody there, not realizing what that means. He names all the goblins, and they turn into hobgoblins and goblinas, and he names one direwolf, which apparently names all the direwolves because they are a hive mind.
It's the pack thing.
Pack mind. Yeah.
I find it interesting that when he names somebody, they don't instantly change. It takes like a day or two.
Yeah. I was going to ask you guys that because they specifically go out of their way not to show or explain the evolution, but because every time he does this, he runs out of magic, because naming people is a huge ordeal. He doesn't realize it. And he basically drains all his magic and he passes out for 3 days. And then when he wakes back up, everyone has evolved, and we never saw the evolution process. Do you like that, or would you have preferred we actually get to see a little more in depth of how this works?
I think because of the comedy aspect and what this anime is, it didn't bug me. It was just like it felt very Pokemon. Like I gave like instead of a name, I gave a special stone to my Pikachu, and now he's a Raichu. Like it was, which makes me wonder if that's the model. Is there something above Hobgoblin? And if so, how do they get there if the name was what got them from Goblin to Hobgoblin? And you can't give them another name. So is it skill? Is it like something else?
It also sounds like there's multiple paths of evolution for a lot of these creatures. Like the ogres when they turn into
Kaijin?
Yeah.
They're kaiju.
Basically, when they reach their evolution, they're like, wow, that's like one of the rarest forms of the evolution of ogres.
So I remember them saying, oh, he evolved into a goblin lord. Oh, he's now a goblin king because he's over all of these. And I don't think it's just a title. I think that that's actually an evolution based on the situation.
Yeah, he does say he looks even bigger.
And later, the main direwolf,
he does level up from
he levels up, and we actually see the evolution. It takes place within a few seconds, where he grows another. Yeah. In addition, there's an old game that I absolutely loved called Ogre Battle: March of the Black Queen on, I think it was Nintendo. It might have been Super Nintendo though. And
seriously, that's exactly what I was thinking. How does Jeremy know this game?
And it was, you would basically set up your army as a group of 6 different characters, and those characters, you could do this. You could like choose which path they were going to evolve. You couldn't control them in combat or anything. And this reminded me so much of that. The level of depth in that game was just astounding. So to me, this had a little bit of that nostalgia as well. It's great.
So I picked 3 characters out of these new name characters to talk about. First off, we have our Goblin Elder who will become the Goblin King.
My favorite character. I love that guy.
Yep, Jeremy's favorite character, Rigard. What'd you think of him?
He was amazing. I just loved it because like he's this really old guy. He's like crotchety and he's shaking, he's got the shakes and he's got his cane but he's got so much energy and he's so excited about this slime that showed up and everything. And then as soon as he finds out, and all the goblins find out that they're going to get names, he's literally like dancing with his cane, and we don't know what a name means yet. And so he's seeing this old guy just dancing around with his cane in line. And then when our main character wakes up and sees him, he's like this giant hulking beefcake that never wears a shirt and is constantly flexing. And it's like, this is exactly what like an 80 or 90-year-old man who remembers the glory days would behave if he got something even better than he ever had when he was young. I loved it.
It felt just like every introduction that Armstrong in Alchemist does. Just every time he meets somebody, he's just like, yeah.
It's awesome. So, yeah, I absolutely love this character. And later on, at first he's kind of a cheese and a ham, and he just loves getting the attention and showing off what he's got now, showing off the guns. But later on, he does slowly stop doing that and starts getting more serious and is attending all the meetings, of basically the cabinet, and is helping to make decisions. And yeah, I actually liked him. He seemed to be more of a village elder and eventually a goblin king. It made sense. Certainly a nicer goblin king than the one from Goblin Slayer.
I did like him. I thought it was very funny. I kind of wish his son had more to do. I feel like his son's being a little bit wasted because he seems like a very special goblin. He's the chief's son, and he's just kind of also there supporting his dad mostly.
They definitely gave him the most interesting goblin outfit.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, okay, so we also have Ronga Tempest. This is the head of the direwolf. So we kind of already talked about it a little bit, but what did you guys think of his character?
I like him as a supporting character. He doesn't seem to. I think my favorite moment of him is when later on when the lizard men come and he's like, "All right, you defeat this dude, and I'll think about joining you." He doesn't even commit. He's just like, I'll give it a thought. Yeah. But I think he's a lot smarter than he leads on to. I think he's just being the dog subservient because of how much he loves his master. But yeah, I think the anime doesn't give him enough depth or credit for who he is, because as he is now, I think he's just, nice side character.
I 100% agree. I think one of the only things that really bugged me was seeing just how intelligent he was, and then having him sitting outside with the goblin riders during the cabinet meeting. And I'm like, this is the leader of one of your groups, one of your armies, basically. And he's intelligent and he leads the whole pack through telepathy. Like, you need his opinion in there.
Yeah, I agree.
I completely agree. They're not giving him the credit that he needs. And maybe that'll come up later. I hope. Maybe not.
Summoning your dire wolf was also rad. I loved that ability.
Yeah.
And Gonta, the tiny hobgoblin who could.
I love that he doesn't look like a hobgoblin after his name. Like, he gets all the benefits and the power boost that everyone else did, but he looks exactly like a goblin still. But he's apparently like a protege, because he's just learning all these other skills on his own. Like, he learns to summon his direwolf out of fear. And somehow he learned like Shadow Step. So and no one knows how. But yeah, I really like that character. I actually, because he's not just becoming more powerful, but he's also really funny. It's fun to root for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because like the direwolves start with Shadow Step, and then he seems to learn Shadow Step, and then one of the ogres has Shadow Step, and Rimuru is just really jealous because he wants Shadow Step. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, you could eat a direwolf and learn Shadow Step, couldn't you? I mean, it would be kind of counterintuitive here, but
this is why you belong in Overlord, not in this anime.
But I absolutely love this character as well. I find it interesting that he's not the only goblin that did not change when he got a name. And as a matter of fact, all of the goblin riders, the direwolf riders, all of them stayed in their original goblin form. And I actually kind of appreciated that they chose to make them the goblin riders, which kind of implies that it's easier because they're smaller for them to ride on the backs of the direwolves. Which is funny, too, because the direwolves can change shape. They repeatedly were given different scenes where sometimes they're so massive, it's like dinosaur size. Ridiculous. And other times they're so small that like a relatively petite girl can reach down and pet them like a Labrador or something. And that really confused me for a while. But yeah, I absolutely love this goblin.
Yeah, in the scene where the lizardmen come, that size is his normal size.
Right.
All the other times, he's shape-shifting for convenience.
Yeah. That confused me for the longest time. Until that happened, I was just like, I don't understand you guys.
So Gonta was my favorite character for most of this anime until another character shows up. To me, he feels like the plucky underdog who needs to overcome adversity. And that's the kind of main character I like in an anime. So I'm like, Gonta, you're the man.
Even Gabru says that later. You must be the leader, which is like your main character.
The thing I was alluding to earlier with Rimuru is Rimuru has very low affection for Gonta and leaves him to die in a prison at one point, and then at one point thinks Gonta does die and just walks away and is like, okay, well, I guess we lost Gonta.
We don't have any more casualties like poor Gonta.
Actually, I loved how in the prison he's like, oh, I can't forget about him when I leave, and then he forgets about him.
In the English dub, he says something like, I probably won't forget you.
Probably.
Oh, that's funny.
After bounding his mouth shut too, he like
stop making noise. Go back to sleep. I loved it too. Like he picked him up and hung him upside down in the cobweb, and it was more of a test because he was playing around with his webs. He was just kind of goofing off and playing around, and then his comment in the sub was like, "Wow, he's a really heavy sleeper." Like I'm totally abusing him, and he's not even waking up.
It's crazy because Rimuru for all the other goblins is like, no, you guys are people, and we're gonna treat everybody with respect. And then this Gonta, he's like, no, F you, you're dead. And again, it's like I said before, it's for the joke, and it's mostly fine, but it's very, And it is funny, but it also is like it's weirdly out of character.
Yep.
You're the worst.
Uh-huh.
So now that he has named his goblins and his direwolves, Rimuru decides, okay, we need to take care of building stuff and clothing, and the goblins suck at that. So he finds out there's a town.
Okay, you're just like skirting over why the goblins suck at this. I loved this scene because he's looking around. He's like, yeah, we got to do something about the buildings. And then there's a goblina standing by, and she's got her arms behind her back, and she's just kind of bouncing. She's just standing there bouncing, and he's like looking at her clothes, and he's like, we've really got to do something about these clothes too. And she just keeps bouncing. She's not doing anything. I laughed so hard. This is my humor, hands down.
Can't imagine why I decided to skip past that.
Yeah, weird.
Well, you're right. That did happen in this anime.
Yes, it did. How dare you just skirt past it?
And also, let's not forget, in the last Transformers movie, a character carries around a card that says he gets to have sex with an underage girl. That also happened in a movie.
That happened?
That happened in that movie.
Oh, that's right.
That is
Oh my god, I remember that now. prior consent or something like that.
Yeah, it was prior relationship.
Relationship? Yeah. Oh, that's right.
That's a weird thing to happen in a movie.
Was,
Troy edited that out.
Creepy.
So they decide to go to the Dwarven city to get supplies, which is where the goblins have traded with before, which is why Gonta has to go, because he is the guy who's always been sent to do the trading. It usually takes a long time, but now they have direwolves to ride. It takes them 3 days to go there.
And also they're faster now because they're Tempest wolves instead of dire wolves. So they have some mastery over wind.
We run as fast as the wind now.
Yep, that's true.
I did not like that.
No, it was fine. I actually like the evolutions and them going up with monsters. It's just for note taking. I was like, do I really have to point out that they're no longer direwolves and that they're these things? They're Tempest wolves, which happens to also be their last name.
That's why.
So was there not a Tempest wolf breed before this? Did he literally create a new breed of?
I believe so.
Okay.
Okay. Sure.
Part of what's going through me right now is that we have to talk about the Dwarven Kingdom arc, which I am not a fan of.
There was so much potential here, and I feel like a lot of it was squandered.
I felt like this was super contrived, and especially just to be like, okay, we need to give this character like cool weapons and ability to get cool weapons, so let's just come up with a really cool, dumb story to give him that.
And you mean the alpha. God, I love that scene.
And it starts out really good, in my opinion, because they get to the mountain after a couple days of riding, and they're like waiting in line. And he's told, when you're in the city, everyone's allowed and no fighting's allowed. And Gonta made a comments about waiting in line and how that's going to be a problem, but he didn't. He's like, I feel like I should have paid attention to something he just said. They get there, and some humans pick a fight with Gonta and him, and they're the only two going in the city.
A human with a literal screw, a giant screw in the side of his head, and a scar that makes it look like he's got like some kind of weird plastic Cro-Magnon head. It's so weird how they decided to make this character.
At first, it's two humans messing with him, and then they start the fight, and like the rest of the party runs in.
That was funny.
He changes into what he thinks is going to be his direwolf form, but he has evolved into a Super Saiyan direwolf, Super Tempest level 3. His eyebrows disappear.
His hair gets so long, he runs circles around.
No, what is the two-horned Tempest wolf called?
A black Tempest wolf or a black
Tempest Star or something like that?
Tempest Star.
I think
that makes
right.
sense. That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, I wrote Star Wolf.
Yeah. And I know Star and Tempest and Wolf are in the name. I'm just not sure what the order is.
Okay. He literally can't take damage, or takes so little damage. And remember, he has pain nullification because he complained about pain when he died. So he's just like, meh. And then he tries to use Menace, the scaring thing, but it's now so powerful that it actually freezes everybody around him. He makes like 20 people wet themselves, 30 people pass out, 12 people ran away. And so the dwarves come and arrest him and Gonta for their behavior.
Actually, it's interesting you mentioned the pain nullification because I'm hoping the reference comes back later on. I have a feeling it won't. But he mentioned specifically he had a large fall in the cave in the beginning, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't feel that." But then the sage was like, "Yeah, but you took damage," and he's like, "Oh, that could be a problem." So I hope they bring that back in later, but who knows?
He also regenerates like Wolverine. Let's not forget that part.
But hey, let's not focus on that.
Okay. And everyone he fights happens to work right into his immunities. All right.
So far, but it's just the beginning.
I know. I'm hoping. Oh, God, I'm so stalling to cover this dwarf story because this is where it goes off the rails. Basically, the cop's like, "Oh no, my friends were attacked by a monster in the mines and they're all hurt." And he's like, and Slime's like, "Hey, here's a bunch of healing potion in a barrel. Oh, cool. I'm gonna take that. You're cool, Slime guy. You can leave the jail. I'm gonna take you to meet my friends." Takes them to meet Kaijin, who we will talk about in a second, but I'm on a roll here, so I'm gonna keep going. Kaijin's like, "Oh my God, I have this crazy job to do," and Rimru's like, "Oh, cool, I'll do it for you. I'm a slime, I can do that." And then he's like, "All right, let's go party. Yeah, we're partying. Oh, now we beat up a bad guy and we're in jail, and we're going to prison for life. No, we're not. We're going home. All right, bye bye." The end of the story. Feel free to fix that. I'm just gonna sit here.
How elegant that they tied all the loose ends in that story.
2-episode arc, and still had time for half of that to be about elf boobs.
Elf boobs. Elsa. Okay, I loved this because he built it up so much in his mind. Like every time anybody would mention elves, and he hadn't even seen any yet, he would stop listening to the entire conversation and he would just have these cloud bubbles over his head of sexy elves. And he just keeps repeating, Elfa. And it just cracked me up every time. And so then when he shows up and he actually does that, the punchline comes across. It was great. I thoroughly enjoyed that. But I do agree with you on all fronts. This was very contrived. It was very systematic, very formulaic. And I was predicting it the whole time as it was happening. Yeah.
There are a few interesting story beats I should call out. One is the elf offering him a little something special, and he's like, "You can do that to a slime?" And she's like, "No, I mean fortune telling." He's like, "That's a disappointment to me." But the fortune telling that we get told is that there is a character in this world who is his soulmate, and Jeremy has called it out in our personal text that this was a very good touch, and I absolutely agree with him. Which we'll discuss when we get to the point of that.
My favorite part about this arc, which I hope comes up later, is the Dwarven King specifically. He not only saw through the BS of what was going on in that court trial, but he's pointed out, it's like, look, this slime was able to make 100% pure healing potions by the barrel full, and you just force a situation where we can no longer have contact with him again. That to me was a great setup for hopefully something down the road, and I'm hoping not, hey, we can't have contact with him, so don't worry, writers, you'll never have to write about me again.
Yeah.
Which I have a feeling that's probably what it's going to be. But he seemed like an interesting character, the Dwarf King.
It's got to come up because he sent his spy, and we're like showing an actual very distinct character who's going to be the spy for the Dwarf King. And maybe you guys can explain this to me because I didn't fully understand it, and maybe it was because by just at the end of this arc, I was just mostly checking out. The king lets the slime go with his dwarves. You know, he sees, like you say, he sees through the BS. He realizes, okay, this isn't. And he's like, "Get out of here! You guys are all banished. Go!" And then, like 5 minutes later, he's like, "I can't believe we let that slime go." And I'm like, "Well, you just had him.
No,
you just let him go."
No, this was definitely a forced hand situation. So it kind of reminds me of like, okay, it's kind of silly, but I gotta go to the one that comes straight to mind, which is the Mordecai situation in the Bible, right? Where the king is bound by the laws he makes, right? And so this to me kind of seems like a similar situation where the way that the courtroom is set up is someone gets to come up and defend the defendants, but the defendants are not allowed to speak in their own defense. And so this defendant is clearly bought off and paid off by the person who is making the charges, the guy that you acknowledged earlier as the bad guy. And so the defendant just basically says, yeah, they're all guilty and they did this horrible thing and it's bad. And so the judge, who's under the king, then makes the decision to have them essentially thrown in jail for the rest of their lives. And this is what I thought was interesting because the king actually steps in and he's ready to undo the whole thing by saying, you were a general in my army, Dwarven Smith. Do you want that position back? And when the Dwarven Smith already had made a decision to go with the slime and had made a commitment, so he says no. So the king is essentially maneuvering within the parameters of what he can do without undoing previously existing laws that are set up, is what I'm seeing. And so there must have been a way that he could be like, you can come out of this if you join my military, but since you're not joining, all right, as the king, I'm banishing you for that. And that way he could get him out of there and let him go and release the slime. And so it was a situation where, you know, he had to do something. He had to have something equivalent to a lifetime in prison without making it a lifetime in prison.
I guess I took the offer of the general job as he's willing to just, I'm the king. There are no rules for me. So I do get what you're saying. I get the logic of that. It's just the way when he lets that, when he's like, man, I can't believe that son go. He's like, this is a huge threat issue, big deal. So it didn't really match up in my head. But like I said, I had mostly checked out by this point.
Yeah.
Nice. 2 seconds. I gotta take care of something.
Okay.
Yeah, this was an interesting one to me because I really liked how the king handled the next situation where he did say that, like with his advisor or with that other.
When he calls out the guy, he's like, "I've been waiting for you to just like
get
your shit together." I did actually like that scene. To be honest, I did like when he called him out. And he's like, "For so long, I've known you've had the ability to do this," and then that bad guy being like, "Oh yeah, like, I was good at my job, and I did want to do good things, and now I'm an a-hole."
Right. I remember when I was a little kid, and I used to be so like gung ho. Yeah,
that was good. You're right. The rest of it was great.
Now, there was something really interesting that the king said to that spy that he was sending out after Rimuru. He told the spy to go and essentially punish the guy who defended them that was corrupt, that said, yeah, they're all guilty. I was like, what exactly do you mean by punish him? Like whoa.
He's going to be sleeping with the fishes.
Exactly. Yes. So I was like, okay, so the king has some underhanded spy master stuff going on here. This is interesting to me. Yeah.
Okay, so after this arc, we come to our next arc, which is about the three adventurers and Shizu. Let's start off with Shizu, who is, I thought for sure was the hero because she's wearing the same mask as the character who sealed away Veldora, but we find out that she's not. So what did you guys think of Shizu?
I was enthralled with her story. And also it was kind of neat to see that you could come to this world multiple ways because that's not normal in isekai. Mm-hmm. But yeah, her transformation from basically good guy to bad guy and then back from bad guy to good guy was pretty neat. Even though we didn't get a lot of time with her, unfortunately. I wish she was in the anime more. But I did like I've been around for a really long time and it's time to go kind of thing. That was heartwarming.
Yeah. I was a little bit sad with how, because they needed to move forward with the story and they needed her to do her part. I really wanted them to take her backstory a little bit slower, reveal it to us a little bit more slowly, leave us. Mm-hmm. There was so much room because, like you say, Jason, she shifted alignments and more than once, and there was so much room to have uncertainty there for the audience of like, well, what is her story, and why does she have this reputation that is sometimes bad, sometimes good? Which one's correct? And yeah, I was a little bit sad there. But when she did eventually say, you know, I got to move on, I'm gonna die, basically, I was thinking, okay, you need to look old. You need to look old. I'm not gonna buy this if you don't look old. You need to look old. So then when she did, okay. This is cool.
I was actually in the exact same boat. I was so happy when they were like, "Oh, yeah, she's really this old."
Yep, that was good. I really liked her as a character.
Me too. I did like her as a character. I think I liked her more as a character in her flashbacks than in the actual scenes. But knowing where she is in her life and how long she's lived, it made a little more sense that she's a little more easygoing and just kind of, hanging out with slime. That's cool.
Yeah, they really loaded that character. They loaded her story up because in the very beginning, the first thing we see in this anime is a little girl in Japan when the bombs are falling, running with her mother, and she basically gets swept up in a firestorm and teleported away. And that's the last we see of her until we start learning about Shizu's backstory, this is her. And that's absolutely fascinating. Do you guys think that she is actually dead and he ate her? Or do you think that he consumed her, analyzed her, but is locked her in some kind of stasis in his unknowable void belly? Because he did say she's sleeping and having dreams about her mother, and then we see dreams where she's running to her mother. Is that a reincarnation? Because we don't know the rules of this world exactly. So is that like a reincarnation or a near death?
We don't know enough about the process of death in this world, and if every sentient being has a soul, or if they go to another place, or if they're reincarnated, or there's some Valhalla. We don't know enough. So either could be plausible, like she's dissolved and her soul went on to be with her mom, or she's now dreaming about her mom, which I think might be worse.
Yeah. Then again, maybe he can only mimic the form of something he actually dissolves.
Yeah, I don't know.
Ooh. Yeah, I don't know either.
Oh, I know.
You do?
Yeah. He ate her. She dissolved.
How do you know?
Well,
because she would be with Valdora and Ifrit if he didn't.
And he hasn't taken the mimic form of either of them.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I don't know about the logistics of that. It's just, I think he ate her to kill her. And whereas like Ifrit is being stored and like met up with Valdora, and they're like gonna fight in his stomach.
How are they gonna fight with that barrier between them?
They'll figure it out. We also super put the horse before the cart because we were supposed to be talking about the character when we ended up talking about her finale. She's gonna the anime did it. She is sent with 3 adventurers who I just want to briefly. There's Eren the mage, Kaval the fighter, and Guido the thief. These are the same 3 adventurers that Rimuru had seen earlier. Any thoughts on them? Because they're basically some good characters. Yeah.
I love these 3. They're definitely comic relief. Because when they're running from the ants was probably some comedy gold right there. Of course, and Shizu's amazing in this battle anime and just blows them away, which was great. But yeah, every turn they're always running from something far out powerful than they are.
Yep. And there was a few references to how long Shizu must have been with them based on the accounts that they were recounting. And I really would have liked to have seen more of that. That would have been a lot of fun to see just what their adventures were. They should make like a little OVA or mini series of Shizu's adventures with them. I would love to see when they sit together around the fire in the evening and they all start eating and you get the same scene as when he walks in there and they're having their meat and they're just it's great. It's great. Love these characters.
I liked them too. They felt like they could have had their own anime somewhere. Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely agree. We also we get a scene where they're being attacked by giant ants, and they try to fight him, but Rimuru comes and saves them and invites him into his village. And basically is like, hey, what are you humans doing? Hey, isn't that the girl from My Fortune? And why does she get Japanese video game references?
That was actually really funny to me.
That was a great touch because in every other isekai that we've seen so far, there aren't any other people from the other world that they came from for them to interact with. So to actually see two people from the same other world interact was pretty neat.
Not true for Konosuba. There was the hero with the magic sword.
Oh, that's right.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that guy. Oh, that was great.
I sold it.
It's not fancy, but it'll do.
But we do learn that Shizu was summoned to this world, and Valdora had mentioned that is how people from Rimru's world usually end up here. Reincarnation is not really a thing that happens. And so Shizu was summoned, and we get a flashback. Basically, the demon lord Leon summoned her to be a container for the demon Ifrit.
Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Spirit Ifrit. Interesting that they chose Ifrit, the Final Fantasy summon. I know he's not just that, but thoughts on Leon?
Don't know about him.
Yeah,
he's very mysterious and enigmatic.
I'm guessing he's our top villain that we're trying to reach.
He's mentioned a couple times by some of these characters as one of the most powerful demon lords.
Yeah.
I have a feeling he's definitely near the top, but I don't think he is the top. Well, especially since he was fleeing on multiple occasions.
There's a scene in the flashbacks for her where another one, like this bird guy, shows up, and the bird guy is a competing demon lord who tries to take over, or a sorcerer that's aspiring to be a demon lord. And so we know that demon lord just seems to be maybe a title. Maybe it's an evolution that you get similar to a name evolution. If you reach a certain power level and you take a certain pathway, you get that title, and then you have to. Maybe there's something above that. I don't know, but it's a bit confusing. But I'm really curious because I don't know that the one that we see later is actually him, because we see another person in episode 13, I believe, looking through, or at least on his desk is another magic sphere, crystal ball, and I'm thinking that's another demon lord, but it didn't look like Leon.
We do know Gilmood works for him, right?
Yeah. Well, it works for a lord.
Yeah.
But we don't know that
I think he specifically said Leon. I thought so.
Really? Okay, he might have.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. I didn't write it down. So that, I guess that's why I was assuming he's our main villain, and why I even brought him up, because we don't get a lot of time with him. But yeah, he's definitely our main baddie.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we get in the next episode, we get the flashback that Jeremy just mentioned, the sorcerer bird guy showing up, and basically Ifrit using this little Japanese girl who's taken from a war as, his holding cell as he burns away anything that gets in the way.
Yep. Take her for a test drive, basically.
Then we get another flashback, which is of Shizu and a friend of hers that also serves Leon.
Oh my god! These are those rare moments where this anime just went like,
yeah, this felt like
painful,
tragic. So basically, her friend finds this little monster baby, and they decide to take care of it together. They present it to Leon, and it gets all mad and feral when it sees Leon, and Ifrit takes that as a threat and just murders both of them in a blaze of flame.
Did not see this
coming. Ifrit, of course, being the girl herself, like she just loses control of her own body and kills her friend.
So Shizu basically murders her best friend and basically the puppy that she wanted to raise.
And one thing she points out is that she basically gets to experience everything Ifrit does through her body that she has no control over. So she's traumatized every time he takes over and does just something horrendous.
Yeah.
So in the story, while the party's getting ready to leave, and I've kind of skipped past like nice conversations between Rimuru and Shizu, because again, that's my soulmate. I need to talk to her, and they get along very well. But they're getting ready to leave, and after these flashbacks, Ifrit actually takes control of her completely and turns into Ifrit. is this just random that this happened, or do you guys think there's a reason? Is it a response to being close to Valdora?
She mentioned it was the first time she lost complete control. So it seems as though every time before she is able to maintain herself. I think this is she's lost herself when he takes control.
Yeah, I think she complains a few times of like having a harder and harder time as she's getting older. She's losing the ability to restrain him.
She mentioned that.
Yeah. And so I think that she must have just maybe crossed a threshold of overexertion with these young adventurers through her latest travels. And yeah, you might be right. It could have something to do with the proximity to Rimuru. But yeah, I mean, even the mask, which is supposed to help her, restrain him by holding the magic back, even the mask breaks and splits. So, which that almost implies that Ifrit is putting forth more power than he ever did before. Like he's trying harder to break free. So it's hard to know, but it's quite possible.
So we basically then get a big battle between Ifrit, Rimuru, and these three adventurers. Rimuru's water attacks are basically non-effective. Ifrit summons three familiar fire gargoyle things.
Did you just say the attack was not effective?
I mean, you guys referenced Pokemon earlier. Why can't I? Okay. But Erin, the mage, her icicle attacks are effective. So
water, ice is effective. Yes.
Yeah. So Rimuru takes a ice shard into the so he can eat it.
I like this moment.
He can copy the skill, and he develops it into a shotgun blast. Basically, he can make 12 at once and fire. Kills the familiars, which hurts the adventurers because ice and fire and explosion. Makes sense. That's almost in every anime.
Well, no, the explosion from the ice attack didn't hurt them. It was the one that self-destructed right in front of them.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a pressure of ice and rapid cooling and.
No, that was the problem if he had thrown just water at them.
Tons of water, yeah.
Kind of like in Alien 3. But no, actually, I love the what was it? Because Great Sage. Shit, I can't remember. Never mind.
Fun times. We have a bit of a disagreement on this battle. So basically, Rimuru uses these new abilities. He goes after Ifrit. Ifrit surrounds him in a fire pillar, but Rimuru is fire resistant. He does make a big wailing speech about how he's going to die again. Yeah. Realize he can't die again, at least not this way, and just incapacitates Ifrit and eats him.
Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was great. And it's not fire resistance, it's fire nullification. Because he has lightning resistance, but he doesn't have lightning nullification.
He was taking some damage, though.
I think they used the word nullification.
In the English dub, she said something like, you're taking very little damage. The Great Sage did.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. I remember them using the word, like, your fire damage is nullified for you. And so I just thought that meant 0. But...
It's hard to see. There's no ones coming off of
it. Yeah, right. It's not quite gamified. I really liked it because, we're dealing with Ifrit, which so far in every scene that we've been privy to, Ifrit has always presented himself as like this almost robotic, I'm just going to destroy everything with what works. And that is fire. It's the most destructive thing. And I'm arrogant. And there you go. Boom, fire. And it was an opportunity for Rimuru to kind of realize that his resistance isn't just to regular fire, but it's basically to a spirit that is the embodiment of fire and control of fire. Like, it kind of sets him on a whole nother level. And I didn't mind that. I would be irritated if it was every fight, but it wasn't too bad in this one. He did overcome the challenge of the salamanders. And it was a challenge because he had to learn a new attack to do it.
Right, and there just happened to be a mage doing that specific attack he needed within 5 feet of him.
No, that's right. So Great Sage said the reason your water attacks aren't working is because it's just straight up water. You're shooting liquid at them like a squirt gun. But her icicles, yes, as though they were frozen water, they were infused with magic.
Attack.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he hadn't had that soon. More shooting, less talking.
Yep.
I guess my biggest problem with this is everything was just contrived how he's able to beat him. His fire nullification is just from a random comment when he was dying. The ice is just because there happens to be a mage who can give him that ability standing beside him, and he happens to be fighting a demon that can't hurt him. And if he just ties him up, then he's able to jump on him.
Yeah, but you could say the same thing about all his healing ability, right? Like, so
I do.
Right, but you were okay with it though.
I'm fine with his ability. I just if this is the big battle, and this is probably one of the biggest battles we get in this arc, I'd like to see some tactics or some challenge.
His big challenge was keeping the three adventurers alive.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, but this felt so low stakes. Even the village burns down, and it's like, meh, we'll fix that tomorrow.
Yeah, because the first thing he does is, hey, evacuate the village.
Evacuate the village, and then it immediately burns down. And so no lives are lost. There's literally no cost to this other than Shizu's arc is done.
It kind of reminds me of when I'm playing some games, I'll go back and I'll try that map again until I get it perfect. yeah, there you go. There you go. If I'm really wanting to get an awesome streak, like a game with a really good record, I'll restart the mission, go back to the beginning of the mission until I get a perfect score. Nobody got shot.
Isn't that more ReZero?
No, because that only takes place after he dies. You know, with this, it's like he's just doing that perfect game.
But he never had to do it the first time to figure out how he gets the perfect game. He's just automatically already in the perfect game.
But no, because he did the grinding early on.
Well, he didn't. He randomly made comments when he died that gave him everything he needed.
Well, the comments gave him a lot of the individual skills and talents and stuff that he needed, yes, but he didn't have the power level that he needed until he was in there and he ate enough magicules and then got his name. So I don't know. I just think that like the whole premise of this show is it does not rest on him earning anything. I think it doesn't. But if you're going to have a big fight, I feel like there's got to be a challenge to it. That if you want me to care about it, it's fine. We're so close to the overpowered characters conversation. Like I don't want to bring up Saitama very much and be like, so it's not great.
I'll break this conversation. Hold on, Jeremy. You just made a good point. ReZero is an anime about safe scumming.
Yes, it is. It totally is.
Okay. Anyway.
And I'm going to use this to advertise. Next week, we will be continuing. Basically, the thought of this discussion is an overpowered character fun to watch. That is what the Minnesota about, and we'll continue it there. Until then, well, I'm sure even after then, agree to disagree. So yeah, we go to our next one, which is Shizu is laying in bed. Basically, she wakes up after he ate Ifrit. He spat her out. Ifrit showed up next to Valdora, who's like, "Hey, Ifrit, crack knuckles."
Yeah. Which again, I don't know how they're gonna fight, but it sure implies they are.
I have a feeling that he went into the prison with him.
But wouldn't that mean that he can breach the prison walls?
I don't think they're physically there. It's more of a spiritually there.
I don't understand.
Here's a better question. Does it matter?
Yes.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Troy, save us.
Okay, so she tells her story, basically of how she was possessed, and then tells the story of how she fought against a hero to protect Leon and lost. But the hero took her in. They traveled together, hung out, became best friends. The hero left, giving her the mask that she now wears, which is why she has the same mask as the character who beat Valdora. And then she went on to become a hero herself, and then she's actually very old, but she had trouble containing Ifrit as she aged, so she became a school teacher. And like we said, we've seen grown-up versions of the kids. At least one of the kids she raised, who's now kind of an old man, a guild grand master.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
so
she's
just
been in this world for over what? Well,
Hundreds of years, I think.
at least 100, because she said after she got saved by the hero, she spent the next 50 years with her.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Which makes me think the hero must be another summon, and it's very strange because they wear
oh,
similar.
they called out that she was.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, it took 30 mages to bring her.
Oh, I thought that was just like it takes 30 mages to bring someone. I didn't realize they were talking about the hero specifically. It makes me wonder if the hero is the summon of a different demon lord. This was what I was wondering.
maybe. I think it'll be really interesting when we meet that hero.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We really already talked about this scene. Basically, Shizu asked to be eaten, and we already discussed this. I did want to say though, next week this will be the Baka breakdown from Jason's special YouTube video. So make sure you check that out. We're going to be looking at this very exact scene.
I'll be listening.
That's great. And I hope you are checking out Baka Breakdown. It's a great show Jason has created for you guys. It's only on YouTube, but it is where him and me watch a scene from an anime and really get into the nitty gritty of what that scene is about. And he doesn't let me argue with him.
Who has the mute button now?
More like the editing power.
Right.
Like you guys mentioned, she grows old right before he eats her. He does eat her. We see her first running to the hero and her friend that she killed, and then they point and she turns and runs to her mother as a child. It's a very beautiful scene. And then after this, Rimuru gains a human form, which is a very androgynous version of Shizu.
It was so weird what they decided to do with this in different scenes. Like the scene where he's trying to figure out whether he's male or female. Like he makes a clone of himself and checks the clone instead of just checking his own body. And I'm like, you made it creepier. Like it didn't have to be that creepy.
The adventurers head home, and then we get a pigman collapsing in the desert, and then a elf mage guy with pointy ears.
Archdemon.
Okay, Archdemon. I wrote elf just because he had pointy ears. Basically, he takes this, and what's an orc, and feeds him and names him, and that's how the episode ends, which is really just kind of setting up for the next arc.
I thought it was really interesting later when I thought back to how he phrased it. I'll name you, and then I'll give you something to eat. And it didn't click until we find out more details about what that orc becomes. But that's actually a very fitting way to say it.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. In the next episode, basically things are going well. Rimuru is testing out his new body. I'm still not 100% sure he needed a body. Mostly I'm okay with it, but again, it kind of kicks away the very premise of the show that we were sold on. But I like the new form, and it actually matches the voice a little more than the slime ball.
right.
Yeah.
I think the reason they needed him to have a body was so that he could interact in a visual way for the audience.
You mean to have exciting
battles? Huh?
You mean have exciting battles?
That he could interact with the world around him in a way that was, I guess, relatable. Because, he gains taste buds, so he starts to eat with his companions, even though he doesn't need to eat at all. For the three adventurers, it becomes a really mournful. It allows them to mourn.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, and also being able to approach others without them going, "Oh, it's just a slime," kind of thing, right? Because we get the orcs that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. There's also the incognito ability. Like with this body, he can now blend into cities better. He's not going to get singled out. And also the agency. Like I remember that during the first half of what we watched, when he was just a slime, he was often being carried by something else or having to sit on some object that was being carried by somebody.
Or pressed against two soft objects.
That's right. Yeah. Well, he didn't mind that too.
That hasn't happened yet. Well, I guess that did happen.
Yeah, it did. It totally happened. arc.
It's going to happen a lot more.
Yeah, it is. And so with this, like his ability to walk around, see things from a height, the way that a human can, I think it gives him more freedom and agency to deal with other entities. But I do agree it was more entertaining when he was just a silly slime.
I agree with all those things, but again, isn't the premise that he doesn't have those things? He doesn't have agency, that's the difficulties he faces. And now that he does, it's really just the time I got reincarnated as a shapeshifter.
Yeah,
he really bugged much.
Yeah, it reminded me of the character from Deep Space Nine that's a shapeshifter, and he was cool, and this is cool.
Oh, that's what I should have used for your thing.
Yeah, that would have worked.
Oh.
I can't even remember his name, though.
It has 2 O's. Oblong.
That's close, though. I know what you're thinking about, though.
Deep Space Nine is the only one I didn't really watch.
Oh, yeah. You mispronounced it. It's Deep Sleep Nine.
Deep Sleep Nine.
Some people swear it's the best one. They do.
So
bad. Okay, so some more stuff happens that's not super important to the plot. But then basically a bunch of ogres show up and start just whooping the goblins' butt that are hunting for a feast for Rimuru. And so Rimuru comes in to save them, and he tries the diplomatic route. He's like, hey, let's talk about this. Why are you beating up my people? And then he decides, okay, well, I guess I'll beat you up. Then he takes 3 of them out real quick. One of them manages to cut off his arm, which kind of surprises him, but doesn't really matter because he's a slime and he can just put his arm back on. And then they do come to an understanding once he shows them basically his full power, especially his new ability, which is the black flame.
Yeah, flame.
So they back down. Again, though, he is attacked by another fire guy. Fun.
I did like the choice.
This one I was fine with because
I did like the choice that the anime went with both the ogres and the orcs, because they didn't look like normal, like what you would imagine of those two races from RPGs. And even he calls that out. He's like, when I hear ogre, I'm thinking like tall, huge, jacked, the hobgoblin looking character. And instead I've got, he basically describes them like, hipsters.
Yes.
Like,
in very, very Japanese garb. Like, and I mean, the prince looks like a samurai.
Yeah.
On everything.
Yeah. They basically calm down, and what's happened is the orcs have destroyed their village, and these are the survivors, and they're trying to figure out, they're finding the Majin, a masked Majin who helped the orcs. And so these ogres are hunting that guy down. They mistake Rimuru because he's wearing Shizu's mask at the time.
Which, so interestingly, during Shizu's story on her deathbed, she talks about how she was a Majin defending the base. And so it's interesting that she didn't get her mask until after she joined with the hero. But that seems to be a hallmark, is that if there's a masked figure that's powerful, there must be a Majin.
That is interesting.
Do you guys know what a Majin is, like in the actual definition? I don't. I mean, other than Majin Buu, I don't know if I'd ever even heard it before.
No, I think they're probably like high-ranking servants of the Demon Lord or high-ranking generals, but I'm not sure.
Huh.
Yeah, the term itself, I think, just is another way to say magic.
So after everyone calms down, he invites them back to the village. And then at the feast, after they've told their story, he basically invites them to stay, pointing out that, that would be advantageous to both of us. We would have more powerful fighters in our village, and then you would have a home base and to hunt down this Majin with. And, once that's taken care of, then you guys can choose to do what you want. And after they agree, he's like, cool, I'll name you. So now we got to talk about each one of these characters very, very quickly.
So, a Majin is a demon god. So a demon god serves a demon lord.
Oh.
There you go.
Perfect. Cool. At least Majin Buu makes sense now.
Yeah.
First off, we have the prince, the leader of the ogres, Benny Maru. Quick thoughts. Boom, boom, boom. Rapid. Let's go.
I liked him. I liked the consideration he had to put into his thought processes, and that he was trying his best, even though his people were just decimated.
I also like that he evolved from a half swordsman, half mage into what appears to be more of a full mage.
And I like how all their evolutions made them a little smaller and more attractive.
More attractive, yeah.
More human looking.
Yeah, right.
I really like this character. Please, let's deal with the fallout of his village dying.
Yes.
It looks from the OP that they're going to.
Seriously, one of the reasons I said the OP's better. It's like I feel their pain, whereas in the story they don't really have time or give it any time. But the OP and the closing really do. So, we have the Princess Ogre Shuna.
Wait.
It's all right.
Yeah, just waiting for her to actually do something interesting.
Yeah, I thought she'd be more important, and she ended up just being the less interesting part of a love triangle that's not important.
She's good at making clothes.
She makes silk. Yeah.
That's right. Make goblinas more properly attired.
On the bigger end of that romantic triangle, we have the busty ogre Shion, aka the secretary.
Yeah. She even gets a secretary's outfit when she evolves. I laugh so hard.
I'm trying not to be upset by it.
Yeah. I actually really like this character, even though she fills a lot of tropey roles. The making fun of her food and then her getting angry that they're calling it a punishment, that was pretty good.
That's what actually was almost killed the goblin. And in fact, it kind of did kill him. He just managed to get the skill poison resistance. Which is interesting because it points out that at that point, Rimuru does not have poison resistance and it could have killed him.
What did Great Sage do? If you put it like in a certain angle in your mouth, maybe you'll survive.
So he like reaches over to the right and it happens to be Gobzu's mouth.
The old ogre Hakuru.
Cool.
I liked him a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And his moment in the OP when he slices through the tentacle snake thing is so cool. I love his blade. I love the speed of it.
The animation's really well done.
He reminds me, there were some Japanese movies that I saw a while back, very long time ago. Can't remember what they were called, but just having that sword in such a modest, humble sheath, and like it's just a piece of wood, basically, is what it looks like. And he pulls it out, very characteristic. I wish I could remember the name of the anime or the name of the show.
Rapid reactions, Jeremy. These are rapid reactions.
That's about as rapid as you get.
Okay, the scout ogre Sue.
I really like this character too. He kind of reminds me, like, if you took the horn off him, I could see him in really.
Awesome. Jeremy, what'd you think?
He's the second hottie, isn't that what Rimuru called him?
Oh, that's right.
He was cool.
I like that he's like, I'm just gonna go kick butt. You want to go there and kick butt? Kakashi. You're thinking Kakashi.
Yeah, like take the horn off and you could just put him into Naruto and he'd fit right in.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And then we have the other guy, Kurobi.
I don't know anything about
the middle-aged man with the hammer, who's actually just a blacksmith who knows his art very well and wants to.
I love how he got like immensely amount smaller when he transformed.
Yes, and it looked like he got older too, because when he was in his big ogre form, he actually looked younger. Like it did all the opposite things to him.
The story after all these characters are introduced and Rimuru wakes up. It's funny because when he goes to name them, he like almost immediately passes out from our point of view, and he wakes up and they all have names, and they had to tell him what he named them.
Yeah, which made me wonder: did he name them all in one session? Because it looked like he passed out after naming one of them.
I assume like he named them in his head, and that stuck.
Oh wow!
But I don't know. It was just a weird way of editing it, I think, for the joke.
Yeah.
So we jump over to the lizard people who are basically about to be attacked by the orcs. And, they go to their king, who in the English dub is voiced by Vegeta and All Might, and gotta love it.
It's awesome.
And so he calls for his son to go and get a bunch of goblins recruited because they need more forces. Because goblins are usually a weak monster and easy to boss around.
Well, not just that. So I think we skipped over an important part. There is a force of 200,000 orcs on the march, which is unheard of unless there is a unique monster, the orc
Lord.
Lord. And this seems to be like we've heard about this impending threat of, there's this omnipotent threat in the forest somewhere of a lot of orcs going and slaughtering whatever they come across. And we don't know much about that threat until this arc when the lizard men actually scout it out and they're like, there's like 200,000 of them.
The interesting thing that happens is when he calls, he goes, "Give me my son." His son comes in and goes, "I have a name now. My name is Gabiru." And he was named by someone and so has had a power boost. And the little chief is like, "I can call you whatever I want." I'll call you my son. But Gabiru is actually a really important character in this arc. So what did you guys think of Gabiru? Gabiru!
He's a bard.
I thought he was okay. He's definitely got, that arrogant streak in him, but not at the beginning. I think it's like developed by his fans.
Yes.
Like, because his troops are more into him, like becoming, more powerful. Like, yeah, he's got this fandom around him from his tribe that I don't think he was quite expecting. And, but because of that, it definitely makes him a bit boisterous.
Yes.
So this is my favorite character because I see him as this rich, naive prince who's like, "Oh, I'm so awesome," mostly, but he realizes like his place. He's like, my dad's a great leader, and I'm just kind of who I am. But he has this entourage that follows him around as the rich, spoiled kid who tell him how great he is and pump up his ego more than it should be. But what I liked about him is that he does some bad actions in this, but not with evil intent. He's not trying to hurt anybody. He is trying to do what he thinks is best for the village, even if it's misguided. And he is trying to do the right thing. And he believes the lizard men are so superior to the orcs that there's not a problem here. And I like that there's this not purely good, not purely evil character with complications who's trying to do good, but he's messing everything up. And he's clearly got flaws, but also good points to him. And we haven't seen a whole lot of gray characters like this. It's either been you're a good guy or you're a bad guy. And so I really like Gabiru. Even he's mostly played as a joke in the beginning, but in the end, when he's battling and he's out there, helping his forces, and they even point out his tactics are good. That he was a competent leader, and it's like, man, it's nice that he's not one note. And I really appreciated that in this anime.
Yeah. To your point, during that last part there where the lizardmen are fighting with the orcs, they actually did bring the goblins that they had recruited with them. And he says, "Man, if it was just us lizardmen, we could probably break through the orc ranks and flee, but we can't leave the goblins here to die." That is not the words of a villain. That is the words of a hero. That's the good guy.
Even when he first shows up to the Ribaru's village, he doesn't come across as, "Hey, I'm your new dictator and I'm going to take your village at any cost." He's like, "You should serve me because I can protect you from this impending doom." It was definitely with good intentions at heart.
Yeah, absolutely. I think of him as like when you make a character and you decide that you're going to roll all the stats, and then you make mostly pretty crappy rolls and you have to figure out where you're going to put them, and you decide you're just going to turn into the curve, so you make him a bard too. And that to me is Gabiru. Sometimes he astonishes you with his capacities, his capabilities, but overall he's just kind of not a great character. I mean, for God's sake, Gobuta can kick his butt. Repeatedly.
That's true, but he is one of the more powerful fighters of the lizard men.
He's named.
He is. No, I'm aware the goblins are far superior to him, but
they're not though. They shouldn't be, because goblins are so much weaker than lizardmen. So if you have goblins and you stand them next to lizardmen and they're not named, the goblins are worse than the lizardmen. So what should happen if you name a lizardman and name a goblin? You should retain that same ratio.
But I don't think he's a bad fighter, and I do think he is superior in the lizardman ranks. I think there's some truth to that. And he was outmatched by the general, but he fought well. Sure.
Yeah. But Gobuta shows up and
kicks him,
the general off, no problem.
I know.
He's so outclassed by this goblin that's also got a name. It just seems like
goblin.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's what I mean by the name is like, I don't know what Gabiru would be called now that he has a name, like Better Lizard Man. but, but like, I don't know. I'd expect him to be, if the lizardmen are so superior to goblins, I'd expect him to retain some level of that superiority over a hobgoblin once he got named. But he did not do it, which makes me think that he must have been real crap when he didn't have a name.
Or Gonta had been training under the king.
That's true. That's
and,
true.
And level up again.
Maybe he is a prodigy too. They did mention it. So who knows?
There's one thing I want to mention though. The lizard men ride lizard beast. And
I know.
The beast clap when they're told to clap.
They're intelligent.
So then I'm like, wait, are you just like riding your cousins or something? What is...
Well, this reminded me very much of the Khajiit from Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, the house cats to these huge lions that are basically the size of elephants are all sentient. They all can talk.
Yep.
Oh, good.
They brought mounts.
We brought Elder Scrolls into it. I'm so
well.
It belongs to everybody.
It wouldn't be a Baka 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 without it.
It makes me wonder if these lizards are they like finding the trees and drinking the sap of his trees, or are they influenced by the moon? I don't know. Massive Secunda. Come on.
Well, one thing I want to call out, so we get the scene with the poison food that we had already mentioned. But I liked when he's getting the food. He's like, is this going to be that anime trope where the food is poison and she's super hot, but she can't cook? And she brings it out. He's like, why trope? Why?
Yeah. And the food is literally making faces at him.
And Shion, or no, not Shion, but Soye, he's being invisible at the table. He's like, I can see you.
Yeah, the old man. Yeah.
Since we do a review show where we point out tropes all the time, I do happen to love it when animes break the fourth wall and kind of poke at the very tropes that we complain about or something, anything like that.
That's good.
But then Gabiru does appear, and we get the scene where he's like, hey, I'm here to recruit you. And he sees the slime. He's like, oh my God, are you guys captured by that slime? I'll totally kill that slime for you. And Ronga steps forward and is like, all right, you fight this little guy. And then Gonta wins easily, and the lizardmen run away real pissed off that their hero, Gabiru, has been taken out. But after this, a dryad appears and asks Rimuru for help defeating the orc lord.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they're the police force of the forest, and this is bad. So
they ride giant trees as mounts.
Yeah. So the village has a big meeting about it with the board or the head council. I like how Shion is the one who's like, we're gonna do it. and Rimuru's like, I mean, we are, but I should be okay. You know what? It's fine. We'll just go with that. So they send Suye to meet the lizard man. He's awesome in this scene when like one lizard man starts talking crap and immediately has a wire around his throat and starts getting his throat slit open slowly.
Yeah.
And to hear All Might be like, no, don't kill him. He didn't know what he was doing.
So great that it was All Might's voice.
That's funny.
So then Suye leaves. He's like, okay, in 7 days, I'll bring Rimuru here and we'll form this alliance officially and we'll take out the orcs. But then Gabiru, who is met by the guy who named him, who also happens to work for the, as part of this evil plan. And this guy shows up. He's like, hey, you should totally be the chief right now. Things would be awesome. You don't want to do what your dad does. He's just sitting around waiting. You should go take care of that. So Gabiru does. He goes and he tells Dad, I'm sorry, Dad, we can't wait. I'm throwing you in jail. I'm taking over. Gets the trident of power. He gets his army ready, and they go fight 3 days later. And it starts out well. And then the orcs, who have a very similar ability to Rimuru's ability, where he can eat things and gain skills, if they literally eat you, they gain your power. And they are they eventually kill a lizard man and eat him, and now they get web feet and they can run in the marsh and they surround the lizard men and the war's going bad.
The big difference between their ability and Rimru's ability is that in trade for absorbing all these abilities, they're always hungry. Like,
right.
they never be satiated.
And it also seems like their eyes are solid white, so they're kind of mindless. And also they seem to, whatever they absorb doesn't remain just with the individuals that consumed it. It seems to
spreads to everybody.
Forward, yeah.
Because really, they're just the extension of the Orc Lord's power.
And I love that what makes them so dangerous to the other races is the Orc Lord's special unique ability is to consume fear. And so when I heard that, I was like, how does that do anything? Well, what it does is that the orcs on the battlefield, their fear is consumed, not the enemy. So that means nothing phases these guys and they'll fight to the death without any hesitation.
And if they see something die beside them, that's just a free meal to gain a power up.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like as you thin their ranks, as long as they're able to eat their dead, you're not actually removing any power. You're just consolidating it in the remaining orcs, making them individually more powerful.
So Rimuru heads out with his team. They actually save the chief's daughter, and she's like, "Can you help my dad?" And she is like, "Yeah, I'll go do that." And he does really easily. He beats one of the generals by himself
with a finger.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Gabiru is getting his butt whooped by one of the generals in a one-on-one battle, and then Rimuru's forces showed up, and this is where Ronga evolves. Gonta is awesome. All the ogres just like let loose with their new power levels and just wipe out mass.
Shocking.
Benimaru's new power is fantastic, and the way he does it you feel satisfied with him for striking back against the people, the ones that killed his village.
I mean, he's like these things. Oh god, there's like these huge spheres of black fire is what it looks like, which I thought that was restricted to Rimuru. But if we're to understand, if they are black fire, then the way that was described by the ogre princess was that is power from inside, not converting power from outside. So that's his own power inside is manifesting as. That's huge. That is so much more powerful than just a giant fireball that would be the same way in this world.
Right.
I especially like Shion when she does her attack and then looks up at Rimuru who's flying with bat wings. Did you see that?
Yeah. There's like this huge crater or like crack in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of where the episode ends. So Rimuru still has to face the Orc Lord. And then the Demon Lord is watching all this happen, and the Dryads they try to kill the two Majins behind this, and the Majins get away. So that's kind of where we leave it. Definitely a bit of a cliffhanger for where we left it, but it is what it is. That if you think about it, 12 wasn't really a good place to leave it either, with the lizard men in the middle of getting attacked.
Yep.
So it is what it is. And so, we will be watching the rest. But for now, let's talk about our final thoughts on this 13 episode group. Jeremy, you picked it. Give us your final review.
So I really liked it. I thought that overall the anime was very much in a set all the pieces on the board in the right place, set the story up, introduce the characters. And it was trying to get a lot of things done very quickly, and so it didn't spend enough time on them that I would have enjoyed for a deeper, more interesting look at the anime, but it was trying to be lighthearted, and I found that refreshing. I actually really enjoyed it. Nothing really swept me off my feet so far, but I am very hopeful and interested in where they're going to go with it. So I'm going to give the first half a 3 and hope that it gets better.
Okay, Jason, how about you?
Everything, all the story beats have not only been done before, but everything was very generic and also very, let's all be best friends kind of storytelling.
Right.
But they did it in a really entertaining way. So I'm going to give it a 3 because it wasn't spectacular, but it also wasn't disappointing, and it's fun to watch. So I'm actually excited to see the next one.
So episodes 1 through 7 for me were a 2, but I did enjoy 8 through 13 enough that I'm going to give my official score as a 3. So this first half for me is a 3, with much the same thought that I hope that now that we've kind of got a lot of the setup out of the way, and we've met a lot of the characters, especially the ones that appear in the OP, we can really start getting to the nitty gritty of the world and maybe start taking some time to focus on character arcs and dealing with, issues that should be bugging some of the characters.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that. Or, just go full shonen battle anime. I wouldn't actually mind that either. With that said, so now, we're watching next time just the rest of this first season. And again, we have the Baka Breakdown coming out soon, and then our minisode next week, which both continue scenes stuff we want to talk about in this. If you want to leave a comment on your thoughts on the time I got reincarnated as a slime, or as I call it, slime time, you can leave a comment on our Twitter at Baka Podcast. You can leave a comment in our email, the animebakaclub@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment wherever you found the podcast, and we'll get back to us. We really appreciate your guys' feedback on everything we do. Thank you. Don't forget on YouTube to like, favorite, and subscribe, bell, and
Slam it.
Dingle, dangle, bangle, bangle.
Right.
What anime are we watching next week? Oh, wait,
This one. Yeah.
Yeah, this one. I'm not here.
Hopefully the audience is paying better attention than Jason.
It's late.
Yeah.
All right. Then let's go ahead and say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Elf.
Sayonara.